Oh, we have missed it. Let's play a game of Would K-Mart Be Shocked? Let's start with this. Kimberly, would you be shocked if Caleb Williams and the Bears make the playoffs this year?
All right, this might be controversial, Greeny. I'm going to say shocked, and for 3 reasons that have nothing to do with Caleb Williams himself. Number one, the division and the conference. They didn't make it last year, and you're going to tell me one of the other teams that made the playoffs last year has to take a step back. I don't see it. Also, the Bears are an organization that has not proven it can develop a quarterback. And number 3, can we just see Caleb put together a good, competitive, play well, get the basics down before we say this kid has to be in the playoffs?
Fair enough. We'll talk about him more as we continue. Let's go to the guy who was drafted after him. Would you be shocked if Jaden Daniels and the Commanders won the division this year?
Greeny, not shocked at all. And I am here to tell you, I am co-CEO of both the Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels fan club. It can be done. Listen, Jaden Daniels, this kid is the truth. The same late game heroics, the same feeling of that you get with Lamar and Patrick and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow of like, this team is not out. Jaden has all of that. Look at the monster year he had last year. I expect him to be even better.
Now, a lot of high hopes in Washington. And then let's go to the AFC. Would you be shocked if the Steelers make a trade for Kirk Cousins?
Speaking of having no hope, so with the Steelers, I would be shocked if they went after Kirk Cousins, and here's why. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make financial sense. They have put all their eggs as far as we're going to wait for Aaron Rodgers. We're going to slow play it, see if he comes along. Kirk Cousins has a no-trade clause. So unless Kirk Cousins says, you know what, send me to the AFC North where I can get my head bashed in all the time against the Ravens and the Browns and all these teams, then I just don't see it making sense.
So here's, I would push back on that a little bit, which is to say, if I'm Kirk Cousins, it seems like a place where they need a starting quarterback if Aaron isn't there. And they have, like they traded for DK Metcalf. They've got some pieces. They obviously have a really good coach and the stability of the organization we're accustomed to. But all of that is predicated upon Aaron Rodgers just continuing to wait. Lewis, what is your reaction to the fact that here we are, June, whatever it is, and we still don't have anything from Aaron?
Well, I mean, look, obviously Pittsburgh has put themselves in this position by being willing to continue to wait for him. Obviously, they also know that with every organized activity that he misses, that is one less chance for him to kind of ingratiate himself to the rest of the locker room, learn the offense, really kind of develop chemistry, all the kind of things that, you know, I think sometimes maybe people get tired of talking about because it's an intangible thing that you can't really quantify, but you damn sure can quantify when the season starts. And all of a sudden, wide receiver and quarterback are on the same page. They're arguing on the sideline. Relationships start to fracture. See, those are the things that right now you're just kind of, you're making the likelihood of that happening increase exponentially every single day that he's not there. And really, at this point, I mean, I don't even know if it even makes sense anymore. I don't know if it'll give them the return that I said early on back in February. Like, he is the kind of guy that they actually need. He needs Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh needs him. It made sense back then. I don't know if now they'll get their return on investment.
And this isn't the Jets last year or 2 years ago where it's this desperate franchise and, oh, the savior, Aaron Rodgers comes. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is Pittsburgh Steelers that has all those Super Bowl trophies and has veteran guys in the locker room who think they could be competitive this year. Talking about Cam Hayward, who's already spoken out publicly, Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, who's not there in camp right now. Truth of the matter is this, the Steelers, as Lewis said, put themselves in this corner. When Aaron Rodgers met with them and the Giants, Aaron Rodgers said, I do not have a timetable. If you're not comfortable with that, go ahead and move on. The Giants promptly moved on and signed Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, and drafted a rookie quarterback that's going to compete for the starting job at some point this season. The Steelers sat on their hands, waited, and said, it's on you. I've gotten texts from Steelers people the last 2 months saying, no update, no update. Guess what? I texted someone this morning. The text was, no update.
And their OTAs are next week. And so here's the bottom line of it. Here's what concerns me if I'm the Steelers or I'm a fan of the Steelers. In order to be what they would want him to be a great quarterback in the NFL, much less to do so at the age of 40, soon to be 41, requires a bordering on maniacal dedication to making it work. That's what we saw from Tom Brady in Tampa. What I'm about to say is not meant as a criticism of Aaron Rodgers. He's a 40, almost 41-year-old man who can do so many different things in his life if he chooses to. Yeah. He is not right now not behaving as though he has that maniacal dedication to making this work. And if he doesn't, again, that doesn't make him a bad person. No. People like him, don't like him, doesn't make any difference to me. But I would be thinking to myself, he doesn't want this enough. That's what I would be worrying about. Yeah. This isn't the only thing in his life, which is what it would have to be for this to work the way they want it to work.
Yeah, clearly there are other things that take precedent. He's got other priorities right now that he feels as though, look, in his mind, whether you agree with them or not, and I don't know, does anybody know what they are? I don't know what they are. I've never heard publicly about anything, as far as what he is dealing with that is causing him to push the timeline out. But yeah, you're right. He's not all in on it right now. And you know what happens? See, this is the thing that's most important to me. The other players see this, and you see it starting to trickle out in terms of the kind of comments that they're making. And look, I'm just telling you, when you're playing with someone, especially a quarterback, who you feel as though is not fully committed and is not all in, I'm telling you at some point it'll cost you. And it won't cost you once. It'll cost you on a continual basis.
Agreed. Here's the thing, to Peter's point, this is what the Steelers set in motion by saying, we'll be patient, you take your time. I don't think it makes logical sense to now say, hey, mini camp's coming, let's draw a line in the sand, because message you've given him is, take your time.
But when? How much time?
He's not on the Steelers.
This is a lot of time. I know that.
He's not a Steeler. He doesn't. They can't dictate this.
No, but you talked about moving on, so that's why I'm suggesting you call up Atlanta and you say, let's have a conversation about Kirk Cousins.
The money too. That Kirk is owed a lot of money, guaranteed money this year. If you're gonna wait for one aging quarterback, I'll wait for Aaron Rodgers. Otherwise, Omar Khan said we will have 4 quarterbacks when training camp comes. It may not be Kirk Cousins. It may be somebody else. It just might not be the high-profile guy that we're thinking.
They seem to have not set a breaking point.
Right.
And that is the thing that it's going to wind up putting them in a position that really doesn't allow them to compete at a level they want to compete at.
Final word.
The Cousins situation makes a lot of sense on paper. We discussed this in the production meeting. It's Raheem and Tomlin are as thick as thieves. Those guys, if there was a conversation that could be done, Arthur Smith worked for that organization, didn't end on horrible terms. They could have a conversation. I just don't think the Steelers are really pushing that, and I don't think Cousins is either.
Called Is That Ridiculous? And we started Dallas. Hey, Lewis, if I were to say Dak Prescott is going to win MVP with C.D. Lamb and George Pickens as his receivers, does that seem ridiculous?
It does, in totality, because there's a lot of different moving parts that are going on here in Dallas now with the new head coach and Brian Schottenheimer. We know that he has familiarity with his football team, but now he's the head coach. Dak has to get all these weapons now on the same page, namely talking about George Pickens. I know George for his career, his average over 16 yards per reception, and CD is fantastic. There's just a lot that has to go right in order for him to have a winning season, which is kind of a prerequisite for being the MVP.
All right, this one I love.
Yeah.
If I were to say the Chargers are going to win the AFC West, not the Chiefs, is that ridiculous?
That's not ridiculous. I'll tell you what, the Chargers have had a hell of an offseason. This offensive line is massive now. The addition of Mekhi Becton to go along with Joe Alt on the right side. They can run the football. They draft Omarion Hampton. They have playmakers on the outside now on the perimeter. We know how Jim Harbaugh loves Justin Herbert, and Jesse Minter is going to be a head coach in another year or two. So they have a fantastic defense. Look out in the West. The West is tight now.
Yeah, they're going to play such short games. It take like 2 hours and 20 minutes for them to play. Finally, if I said Shedeur Sanders is going to become the starting quarterback in Cleveland this year, is that ridiculous?
No, that's not ridiculous. And look, it's going to be incumbent upon this coaching staff to give him a path to really earn that. If they give him enough reps and he has enough opportunities and gets put in enough situations, I think his skill set is such that he can compete with anybody on that roster in the quarterback room. As a matter of fact, he can probably, just one for one, man for man, beat out anybody on that roster. It's going to be about opportunity, though, Greeny. We all know this, so we'll see how they wind up giving him that opportunity.
K-Mart, no one knows the AFC North like you know that division. What are you hearing in the early returns on Shedeur in camp?
Listen, in that building, there are people who believe Shedeur can 100% be the starter of this football team. You said it's incumbent upon the Browns to put him in a situation. It's also incumbent upon Shedeur to do the work, which at talking to people in that building, they have said he is soaking up everything like a sponge in the QB rooms, talking to Flacco, wanting to learn. And also, let's not forget Dylan Gabriel. Spending a lot of time talking about Shedeur, but Dylan Gabriel is a guy who was drafted in the 3rd. One source said to me, he is everything you want in a quarterback. He's just small. If he were a little taller, a lot of people will be looking at Dillon Gabriel a little differently. At least that's how they feel in their building. So they have a very interesting quarterback situation, and Shedeur has a path.
What is your sense, Peter?
Kimberly was actually there in the spring, which I respect, and you had a feel for that. I am watching from afar and also texting people there that he has been everything you can ask for in a young quarterback coming in as a 5th-round pick. I also know it's a huge uphill climb to expect a 5th-round pick to get the same reps as a Joe Flacco or a Kenny Pickett, or even that guy in front of him, Dillon Gabriel. And I thought Mike Tannenbaum made a great point on Monday on this show saying, hey, look, as much as the clock is not on him, it is kind of still on all these quarterbacks in that they have the Jacksonville pick next year in the 1st round, and they have their own pick in the 1st round. And you already start thinking about 2026, this rich quarterback draft. And you say, okay, well, you've got time to prove it in training camp, but you're going to have to see and prove to those coaches that you're the guy moving forward if you're going to tell them that they can't draft a quarterback in the 1st round with those 2 picks.
You know what's interesting about that? Like, I understand, like, personnel people and fans always get enamored about what's next down the road. When you're talking about draft picks and potential guys coming out next year, like, people are now sitting there going, hey, man, maybe we can get Drew Allen from Penn State, and he would be the answer. He would be the one. How about just focus on the present and trying to, like, develop in some of the guys that you have on your roster right now? Shedeur Sanders, we've all watched him play football. Yeah. We all know kind of what happened in the draft. We all know about the stories. We also know about how efficient this kid was as a football player on the football field. We know how good Dillon Gabriel looked at Oregon. We know how good he looked at Oklahoma. I saw him play multiple times there. Just focus on that. If it comes to the point where you then have to, like, go ahead and lean on that draft capital you have next year and maybe a favorable draft position, then address it then. I just hate when the conversation switches like that.
Fifth round pick, they have 0 investment in him. Their names are not on this. We took him as a value. If it was a 1st or 2nd round pick, that's my guy. I want to see this work.
Yeah.
So the sense I get in that building is something catastrophic, crazy would have to happen for Shedeur not to be on this roster. They believe in the talent, but again, and so far, I was there rookie camp. He said to me, I am not here to prove anybody wrong. I just have to prove myself right. It is on him to do the work and prove that he should be in the mix.
The world is a funny place. A year ago, we'd be having conversations like, look, if the season goes really badly next year, you can draft Shedeur Sanders. Here they are. They drafted Shedeur Sanders. Be careful what you wish for. Dive back into the NFL here. Our next game is called Lions and Packers and Bears. Oh, my. Lewis, I start with you. Will Jared Goff and the Lions take a step forward or a step back this season?
Look, I think it's possible that Jared Goff could take a step back when you're talking about just raw statistics, whether it be QBR, touchdowns, completion percentage above expected. I think this football team, though, could take a step forward. Now, there's a lot of things that have to happen. Like, number one, they just need to stay healthy on the defensive side of the football. Number two, they're breaking in 2 new coordinators in John Morton and Kelvin Shepard, offense and defensive coordinators, respectively. But this football team could take a step up. And some of the guys you see flashing on your screen is the reason why. Just think about how beat up they were on the defensive side of the ball last year. If they can keep those guys healthy 3/4 of the season, this football team will be right there in the end.
That's the Lions. Let's go to the Packers. Peter Schrager, will Jordan Love and the Packers take a step forward or back this year?
I believe they take a step forward. I think the NFC North is currently wide open. I think those departures in Detroit are real. I think the loss of Darnold and the transition to McCarthy might not be as seamless as everyone thinks in Minnesota. And I think the Packers can take this division by the horns. They add Matthew Golden. They add another wide receiver in the draft. And I like that they added an offensive lineman in free agency, and all of the coaching staff is back. I think Jordan Love takes a step forward, although there have been questions about his accuracy in big moments over the last couple of years.
And then finally, we had Lions, we had Packers. Let's get to the Bears.
Bears, oh my.
Oh my, K-Mart, Caleb Williams. Will he and the Bears take a huge step forward this year?
Greeny, I think they will take a huge step. They won 5 games last year, so I'm going to think that number improves quite a bit, and here's why. Ben Johnson, number 1. I've heard he's been described as obsessive in the building, intense. I'm told when they don't break the offensive huddle properly, he makes them do it again. And not only just Ben Johnson, but the offensive line upgrades. Caleb took way too many hits last year. I think this is a good year for him. It almost feels like a reset of his rookie season, but I do think he will be much improved.
Jeff Donington made a really good point the other day on our show. He said in the same way that we had to just sort of write off Trevor Lawrence's rookie year because of the circumstances when Urban was there and everything else, that we write off last year for Caleb. It's like hitting the reset button. And everything they had gotten wrong there, including who his backup quarterback was and the way he's being coached and everything else in his offensive line, everything they got wrong there, Lewis,
Yeah.
from the outside, it feels to me now like they've gotten right.
Yeah, look, Ryan Poles went to work this offseason, both in terms of reconstructing the roster and then obviously with the coaching staff. You know, one guy we don't talk about a lot, I think I talked about it, I don't know if it was on here or it was on another show. Look, remember the name J.T. Barrett, the quarterback coach now,
Yeah.
who you saw in those clips right there working with Caleb. Look, wherever you go and you see quarterbacks really take big jumps in terms of their ascension as far as their efficiency, their mastery of the offense, a lot of credit obviously goes to the guy who's the primary play caller, and Ben Johnson's going to get a ton of it. But the guy who really is the dude who can bridge that gap between the play caller and what the quarterback is actually getting done is the quarterback coach. Josh McCown, just think about what he did for Sam Darnold the last year in Minnesota. JT has to be that guy for Caleb Williams. And I think if he's able to get that done, I think this football team will surprise, but they're in a hell of a division.
There's a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams for a variety of reasons. And the book that is coming out in September will be piled onto them, for better or for worse. I mean, all the stuff about him not wanting to be there, he tried to put that to rest last week. People can judge for themselves how they think that went. But there were a million excuses why everything went so wrong last year. There are none left. If he doesn't play great right now, particularly with that kid in Washington playing the way he's playing, who was drafted right behind him, I think there is a lot of heat on Caleb this year.
Particularly in that city. This is the same city that just saw Mitchell Trubisky be selected before Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in the last 10 years. So they will be looking at that bar of not only Jaden Daniels, but Drake May as well,
Yep.
who I think is going to take a massive leap in New England. Lewis mentions J.T. Barrett. Of course, Kimberly mentions all the players. But it's also Press Taylor's in the room now. Antoine Randall L's in the room now. Joe Tooney's in the room right now. There are so many additions to this team. And in the draft, they got him 2 more weapons in Loveland and, of course, Burden. So at some point, it is going to be on Caleb. And I can tell you that even the addition of Case Keenum in that room has been huge. Last year, he had Tyson Bagent and Austin Reed as his backup quarterback.
Yes, it was one of the worst ideas of the many
And we
terrible
knew that at Hard Knocks.
ideas.
We're watching it saying, wait, that's the quarterback room?
It didn't make sense at the time, and that brings us to the point that you continuously make.
Can I just push back on the expectations for Caleb just a little bit? I need us to take a step back from he needs to make the playoffs or else this has been a failure of a season. Like we said, it's a reset of the rookie season. I feel like you want to see a guy who looks comfortable, who knows where the football needs to go, who is playing within rhythm, who's playing on script, and you know, when he's running plays, the coaches aren't sitting there like, what is he doing? Like that, like I need us to just go back to basics because this is a new staff, a rookie head coach as well. So they will take a step forward. But let's not say if they don't make the playoffs that this has been another wash on Caleb.
I like that point.
Yeah.
Lewis, to me, you don't necessarily have to judge the success or failure of this year by the one-loss record. This is a city. It's my favorite trivia question in the world. Name the only city that produced a pope before it produced a 4,000-yard passer. Chicago is they've never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards. If they develop this kid, and we'll know it. You'll know it when you see it. By week 10, week 12, you'll know either he is or he isn't the first pick in the draft that we thought. If he is, then this is a successful season almost regardless of what the one-loss record is.
Yeah, I don't think a 4K season is something that's just absurdly, you know, overreaching or overstepping as far as you trying to project what the season looks like. I think 4K, 25-plus touchdowns, you know, single-digit interceptions. Here's the thing that he really needs, though, make sure that he cuts down on it. And a lot of this is going to come on the players who line it up in front of him in the play-calling sequencing. Look, the sacks have to come down.
Yes.
You have to cut that at least in half. It has to be below 30. It has to be somewhere in the 20s. And a lot of that's going to be on him. But I think even more of it, especially considering the number of unblocked looks that he got last year, or rather unblocked rushers that he was faced with. That's the kind of thing that you just cannot have. And I think if you can get all that going, and that sounds like a lot, I think you're looking at a serious breakout season to where now you're going, okay, now I see the real one-for-one comparison between Jaden and him.
He sought out the Chicago job, and he sought that Chicago job out because of the quarterback, Caleb Williams, and the upside he sees. It's all there. The ingredients are all there. They just need to cook.
Okay, I completely agree. And again, I love the question on the screen. What would be a successful season?
Yeah.
It's about the quarterback.
Yep.
For the first time basically ever, they've got to get that right. If they do, the wins will come, whether it's this year or later.